Get out of here, you fool. We've been living here for free for 5 years, and we're not planning to move out, my mother-in-law snapped when I told her to leave my house after the divorce. My father-in-law even tried to hit me. But you should have seen the look on their faces when I pulled something out of my bag. Before we continue, don't forget to write in the comments which country you're from and how old you are. Enjoy listening. The screen door hissed shut behind me like a final verdict, sealing the night outside and the storm within. I stood on the wide cedar porch of the house I had bought 8 years earlier, before the wedding, before the promises, before the slow erosion of every boundary I thought was mine. The mortgage was in my name alone, every payment drawn from the nursing shifts that left me with aching feet and a spine that clicked when I stood too long. The porch board still bore the faint scuff marks from the day the movers hauled in the leather recliner Vera had insisted was too good for the curb. I had paid for the movers. I had paid for the recliner. I had paid for everything. Every nail, every gallon of paint, every roll of insulation I had stuffed into the attic myself the summer I was 7 months pregnant and still climbing ladders because Carl claimed heights made him dizzy, his voice echoing up the pull-down stairs with complaints about the heat, while I sweated through my scrubs and prayed the baby wouldn't kick too hard. Inside, the television murmured a late-night home shopping channel, the volume just loud enough to drown out the sound of my key in the lock. I had come home at 2:47 a.m., after a 12-hour shift in the cardiac ward, the scent of antiseptic still clinging to my scrubs like a second skin. The same scrubs I had worn when I held the hand of a 70-year-old man as his heart gave out at 11:58 p.m., his wife sobbing in the hallway, my own eyes burning but dry because I had learned long ago to save tears for the parking lot. My canvas nurse's bag hung heavy on my shoulder, the zipper scarred from years of hurried openings in supply closets and break rooms, the fabric frayed at the corners from being tossed into lockers and under desks, and once, memorably, into a biohazard bin when a patient coded, and I forgot it was still on my arm, the red bag swinging like a pendulum as I ran down the hall with the crash cart. I set it down on the porch boards, slow, deliberate, the way a surgeon places a scalpel on a sterile tray, the way I had placed countless chest tubes and IVs and defibrillator paddles in the dark while someone's heart tried to remember its rhythm, while families waited outside curtained rooms, and I whispered prayers I didn't believe in anymore. Through the sidelight window I could see them. Vera sprawled in the recliner like a queen on a throne, remote in one hand, a tumbler of my single malt in the other, the bottle I had bought to celebrate my promotion to charge nurse, and which had disappeared from the liquor cabinet the same week they moved in, the same bottle I had found half empty in the garage 3 months later. The label peeling, the cap missing, the scent of it on Carl's breath every night for a year. Carl slumped on the couch, socked feet propped on the coffee table I had refinished myself the summer I was pregnant and nesting and foolishly hopeful, the table still bearing the faint ring from the countless cans of beer Carl had set there without coasters. The same table I had sanded for 3 days with a palm sander I bought at 2 a.m. on my phone because the home improvement store was the only place open after a night shift, and I needed to feel like I was building something that would last. I had asked him, once, politely, to use a coaster. He had laughed and told me to relax, that family didn't need fancy rules, that I was too uptight, that my ex-husband had married a woman who needed to loosen up, that I should be grateful they were there to keep the house from feeling empty. I had smiled then, the way I smiled at difficult patients, and bought coasters anyway. They sat unused in a drawer next to the good silverware I never used because Vera said it was too much trouble to polish. I drew a breath that tasted of autumn chill and the metallic tang of impending rain, the same rain that had fallen the night I proposed to my ex-husband on this very porch, both of us soaked and laughing, my ring finger bare because I had insisted on picking it out together, a decision I regretted the moment Vera declared it cheap, and Carl snorted that I should have held out for something bigger. My fingers found the brass key in my pocket, heavier than any key had a right to be. It was new, cut that afternoon by a locksmith who had raised an eyebrow at the address, but asked no questions when I slid 3 crisp hundreds across the counter, money I had saved from skipping lunches and taking extra shifts, and selling the designer purse my ex had bought me for our first anniversary, and never noticed was gone. Money I had hidden in a tampon box in the bathroom, because Vera had a habit of borrowing cash from my wallet when she thought I wasn't looking. Money talked. Exhaustion listened. The key was cold at first, then warmed to my skin, the teeth sharp enough to leave faint indentations in my palm, the same palm that had held a newborn's head, that had pressed on a chest until ribs cracked, that had signed divorce papers with a pen that skipped because my hand shook from caffeine and rage. I pushed the door open. The television volume spiked as if on cue, the host's voice booming about a limited-time offer on cubic zirconia earrings that looked just like the real thing. The same pitch Vera had fallen for 3 times. The same earrings now tangled in her jewelry box upstairs, the one she had moved into my walk-in closet without asking. Vera's head snapped toward me, eyes narrowing to slits beneath the heavy fringe of false lashes she applied with the devotion of a ritual, the same lashes that had fluttered at my ex-husband when she thought I wasn't looking. The same lashes that had narrowed at me when I asked her to stop rearranging my kitchen cabinets because I couldn't find the measuring cups. Well, look who finally dragged herself home, she said, her voice syrupy with fake sweetness. Thought you'd be pulling another all-nighter with those heart attack patients. Or maybe flirting with that doctor you're always talking about. The one with the nice car and the divorce papers of his own. Carl didn't bother looking up. Fridge is empty. You said you'd stop at the store. Again. I had to eat cereal with water because the milk was bad. Again. I closed the door behind me with a soft click that sounded, to my ears, like the closing of a vault. Like the seal on a body bag, like the final beep of a monitor when the family has finally agreed to let go, like the sound of the judge's gavel when the divorce was finalized and my ex-husband didn't even show up. I'm not here to restock the fridge, I said, my voice steady, the same voice I used to tell a mother her son didn't make it. The same voice I used to tell a wife her husband would never wake up. I'm here to deliver an eviction notice. Vera barked a laugh sharp enough to cut glass, the sound ricocheting off the vaulted ceiling I had painted myself one weekend when Carl was too busy to help. His excuse a fishing trip with friends I had never met. His return 3 days late with a cooler full of empty beer cans and a story about a flat tire. Get out of here, you fool. We've been living here rent-free for 5 years, and we're not planning to move out." She swung her legs off the recliner, the leather creaking in protest, the footrest slamming down with enough force to rattle the framed print on the wall, a watercolor of a lighthouse I had bought on our honeymoon, because it reminded me of standing on the edge of something vast and choosing to stay, the same print Vera had once threatened to throw out because it clashed with the couch. "This is our home now. You need us. Who else is going to keep an eye on the place while you're off playing Florence Nightingale? Who else is going to make sure the pipes don't freeze when you forget to pay the gas bill? Who else is going to water the plants you keep killing because you're never here?" Carl finally lifted his head. His eyes were bloodshot, the whites yellowed from too much beer and too little sleep. The same eyes that had looked at me with pity the night I came home to find the kitchen flooded because he'd left the faucet running while fixing the garbage disposal with a YouTube tutorial and a hammer. The same eyes that had rolled when I cried over the ruined hardwood I had installed myself. "You heard her," he said now. "Possession is 9/10 of the law." He rose, slow and deliberate, the way a bear tests its weight before charging, the floorboard beneath his foot, the one I had replaced myself after he punched a hole through the drywall in a rage over a misplaced remote, creaking in protest, his fist clenched at his side, knuckles whitening the way they had the night I came home late from a code blue, still shaking from the adrenaline, and found him yelling at the dog for chewing a slipper that wasn't even his. The dog cowering in the corner while I cleaned up the mess and apologized to the neighbor whose window the slipper had shattered. I did not step back. I set the canvas bag on the floor between us, the zipper rasping like a warning, like the sound of a defibrillator charging, like the hiss of oxygen through a mask, like the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears when I realized I had to do this alone. 5 years, I said. 5 years of mortgage payments, 5 years of utilities, 5 years of groceries you never once offered to replace. 5 years of listening to you tell me this is your house because you graced it with your presence. 5 years of coming home to find the thermostat set to 78 in January because Vera was cold and the electric bill tripled. 5 years of finding my laundry unfolded and refolded wrong because Carl didn't like the way I paired socks. 5 years of pretending I didn't notice the missing jewelry, the missing tools, the missing pieces of myself. 5 years of coming home to find the dishes piled in the sink because you're the woman, you're supposed to do it. 5 years of hearing you call me girl like I'm still the 25-year-old who married your son, not the 33-year-old who kept this roof over your heads. Vera's lip curled, revealing the faint yellow of a smoker's teeth. The same teeth that had sneered when I asked her to stop smoking in the house because I was pregnant. The same teeth that had smiled when she told me I was too sensitive about the smell. "You think a piece of paper changes blood? Your husband—" "Ex-husband," I corrected, the word tasting like iodine, sharp and necessary. The same taste I had in my mouth when I told the judge I didn't want alimony. Just the house, just my name on the deed, just the life I had built with my own hands. The papers were signed yesterday at 11:42 a.m. in courtroom 3B. He moved out 3 months ago with the duffel bag he came with and the Xbox he never paid for, and the clothes I bought him for job interviews he never attended. You would know that if you ever left this room long enough to notice the empty closet, the missing toothbrush, the silence where his snoring used to be, The way the house finally stopped smelling like his cologne and your cigarettes. Carl took a step closer, the floorboard groaning again, the same groan it made when I carried groceries up the steps alone, when I hauled the Christmas tree in by myself because he was too tired, when I dragged the mattress out of the guest room after Vera spilled an entire bottle of nail polish remover on it and laughed. "You don't get to talk to us like that, girl. We're family. We took you in when you took me in." My laugh was soft, almost kind, the same laugh I used when a patient asked if the needle would hurt, when I knew it would, but I also knew they could handle it. I took you in. I took you in after the flood in your apartment, after the eviction notice, after the third DUI Carl couldn't pay to fight, after the casino took your savings and you had nowhere else to go. I took you in with a promise of 6 weeks, tops. 6 weeks turned into 6 months, turned into 5 years. I took you in, and you took everything else. My time, my money, my sanity, my marriage, my dog's loyalty, my faith in family. Carl's face darkened to the color of an eggplant, the same color it had turned the night I asked him to stop parking his truck on the lawn because it was killing the grass. I had seated myself with a spreader I pushed in circles until my arms went numb. "You ungrateful little—" I unzipped the bag. Their eyes snapped to the motion like iron filings to a magnet, like pupils dilating in the beam of an otoscope, like the way a patient's eyes widen when they realize the doctor isn't bluffing. Inside lay a manila folder thick as a medical chart, edges crisp, label printed in my own handwriting on the laser printer in the hospital's nurses' station during my lunch break, while I ate a stale granola bar over the sink. Hartwell v. Occupants. Final notice. Recorded 10/31/2025. On top of it rested the brass key, catching the lamplight like a blade, like a scalpel, like the truth I had been carrying for months, the truth I had rehearsed in my head during night shifts, during codes, during the quiet moments when I charted vitals and planned my escape. Vera's smirk faltered, the corners of her mouth twitching downward like a heart rate dropping. "What's that supposed to be? Your little nurse's diary? Gonna write us a prescription to leave? Gonna tell us to take 2 pills and call you in the morning?" I opened the folder with the same calm I used to open a trauma kit, the same calm I had used to start an IV on a screaming child, to pronounce time of death, to tell a wife her husband didn't make it, to sign my name on the divorce papers while my ex-husband's lawyer smirked across the table. Page 1, the deed, freshly recorded at the county clerk's office at 9:03 a.m. That morning while I was still in yesterday's scrubs, the ink still wet when I signed my name in blue, the notary's stamp still smelling faintly of ink and finality, and the coffee I had spilled on the counter in my haste to get back to the hospital for a double shift. Jade Hartwell, sole owner. My signature steady, the same signature I used on death certificates, on discharge summaries, on the check that paid for this house. Carl snatched the folder before Vera could, his thick fingers trembling as he flipped to page 2. A quitclaim deed, signed by my ex-husband the day he moved out, witnessed by my attorney in her corner office with the view of the river and the framed photo of her dog on the desk. Irrevocable, filed, recorded, done. Page 3. 5 years of utility bills. every single one in my name, every payment traced to my checking account with the precision of an EKG strip, every late fee annotated in red because I had to cover their overdrafts. Page 4. A cease and desist letter dated the day after my ex left, citing trespass and unpaid occupancy, and the quiet threat of litigation, and the even quieter threat of the video evidence I had been collecting for 2 years. Page 5. Bank statements showing every mortgage payment, every home repair, every grocery run I had covered while they watched the house, every overtime shift annotated in my neat nurse's handwriting, every withdrawal for Vera's emergency manicures, every deposit from the second job I took at the urgent care on weekends. Vera leaned over his shoulder, her breath hitching like a patient in respiratory distress, the same sound I had heard from a woman whose lungs were filling with fluid, the same sound I had heard from myself in the mirror after nights of no sleep. This is fake. You can't just... Page 6, I said, my voice the flat line before the storm, the pause before the code is called. Carl turned it with the reverence of a man handling nitroglycerin, his sausage fingers smudging the edges, leaving greasy prints on the photographs. A photograph. The two of them on my couch, feet up, beer cans in hand, time-stamped 3 nights ago at 11:17 p.m., while I was holding the hand of a dying man in ICU, his daughter clutching my arm and begging me to save him. Another. Vera rifling through my bedside drawer, caught on the nanny cam I had installed after my grandmother's pearl earrings vanished. The ones I wore to my nursing school graduation, the ones she claimed she had never seen. A third, Carl in the garage, loading my cordless drill and my socket set and my grandfather's old toolbox into the bed of his truck, time-stamped the day he claimed he was just borrowing them to fix a friend's lawnmower and never brought them back. The same day I came home to find the garage door open and the toolbox gone and Carl asleep on the couch with the TV blaring. Vera's face went the color of old parchment, the color of a patient whose oxygen saturation is dropping fast, the color of the discharge papers I had signed for patients who would never go home. You spied on us? I protected my property, I said, the same way I protect my patients, the same way I protected this house when the roof leaked and you said it was just a little water, and I climbed up there in the rain with a tarp and a staple gun, the same way I protected my sanity when you told me I was overreacting for wanting a lock on my bedroom door after Carl walked in on me changing and laughed. The same way I protected my dog when you left the gate open and he ran into the street and I found him trembling under a car. I lifted the brass key, the metal catching the light like a scalpel's edge, like the glint of an IV needle in the dark. This opens the new smart lock I installed at 3:17 a.m., while you were snoring loud enough to rattle the windows and wake the neighbors 3 houses down, the same neighbors who called me at work to complain about the noise, the same neighbors who apologized when I explained I was at the hospital saving lives. The old locks are in the dumpster behind the hardware store, wrapped in the plastic bag you used to line the kitchen trash can and never replaced. The same bag that tore and spilled coffee grounds all over the floor I mopped at 4 a.m. The new ones are keyed to my fingerprint and a 6-digit code you'll never guess, not in a million years, not even if you waterboarded me, not even if you begged. Carl's fist rose again, higher this time, the veins in his forearm bulging like IV tubing under pressure, the same veins I had stuck with needles in the ER, the same veins that had collapsed when he was dehydrated from too much beer. "You think you can just—" I pressed a button on my phone. Every light in the house died with a soft pop, the way a code blue ends when the team calls it, the way the power goes out in the hospital and the generators kick in with a hum. The television screen went black mid-pitch about a miracle mop that could clean anything. The smart hub in the hallway emitted a single chime, then every door and window locked with a synchronized clack that echoed like gunshots in a canyon, like the sound of a gavel in a courtroom, like the final heartbeat on a monitor before the family says goodbye. The porch bulb flickered once, then steadied, now on a motion sensor tied to my biometric print alone. The same print I used to access the medication room, to sign charts, to save lives, to sign my name on the deed that made this house mine and mine alone. From inside came the mechanical whine of the security shutters I had installed 6 weeks ago. After the third time Carl accidentally left the back door unlocked overnight, and I came home to find the window cracked open and the dog shivering on the porch, his fur wet with dew, his eyes accusing. The steel slats descended over every window, sealing the house like a vault, like a coffin, like a promise kept, like the way I had sealed my heart after the first lie, the first threat, the first time I realized family could be a wound that never closed. Vera rattled the front door handle with both hands, her rings clacking against the metal. The same rings she had bragged cost more than my car, the same rings she had pawned once and bought back with my credit card. It did not budge. Carl pounded the reinforced glass with the heel of his hand, the pain spider-webbing but holding, the way I had held it together for 5 years, the way I had held my tongue when Vera called me fat, when Carl called me stupid, when they both called me ungrateful. His wedding ring left a greasy smudge on the glass, the same smudge I had cleaned off 100 times with Windex and a paper towel and a silent curse. I spoke through the ring camera speaker, my voice calm as a recorded discharge summary, as the instructions I gave to families before they took their loved ones home to die, as the voice I used to tell myself I could do this, I could survive this, I could win this. You have 5 minutes to gather what you brought when you arrived in 2019. After that, anything left becomes property of the estate. The police non-emergency line is on speed dial, and I have a very understanding sergeant who owes me a favor after I saved his wife's life last year when she coded in the ambulance bay, her heart stopping twice before we got her to the cath lab. He's already on his way. ETA, 4 minutes. He knows the address. He knows the story. He knows I'm not bluffing. Vera's voice cracked like thin ice under a boot. The same crack I had heard in a patient's ribs during CPR. The same crack I had felt in my own chest the night I found the divorce papers in my ex-husband's desk. You can't throw us out. We have rights. We have— Page 7, I said. Carl knelt, fumbling for the scattered papers, his knees popping like the joints of an old man who had never done a day's labor in his life. The same knees that had refused to help me move the couch when I wanted to repaint the living room. The same knees that had buckled when he was drunk and fell into the rose bushes I had planted. Page 7. A printout from the State Housing Authority, highlighted in yellow, citing squatters' rights and the 30-day notice I had never been required to give because they had never been legal tenants, never paid a dime, never signed a lease, never contributed a single calorie to the groceries they consumed like locusts, never once said thank you. Another page. My attorney's business card, embossed in gold, with a handwritten note in her elegant script. Call any time, Jade. We've got this. Lunch is on me when it's over. You deserve this. Vera tried the side gate, her heels clacking on the concrete path I had poured myself one spring when Carl said it was too much work. The same path I had smoothed with a trowel until my hands blistered. The new keypad beeped red. Access denied. She punched in their wedding anniversary, 06/14/1975. Red again. She tried Carl's birthday. Red. She tried my ex-husband's birthday. Red. She tried the last 4 digits of the phone number they had used for 5 years, the one in my name, the one I had paid for every month while they called their bookie. Red. Carl kicked the welcome mat in frustration, the rubber backing peeling up to reveal the small brass plaque I had installed at dawn. Letters etched deep with a Dremel tool I had bought to fix the drawer Vera broke when she slammed it too hard looking for my good scissors. Jade Hartwell, sole owner. Trespassers will be prosecuted. I watched them on this camera feed from my phone, the screen split into 4 quadrants. Front porch, driveway, backyard, garage. The same way I watched monitors in the ICU, the same way I watched vitals, the same way I watched for signs of life. Vera's bravado shattered first. She bolted for the living room, her slippers slapping against the hardwood I had refinished myself after Carl spilled an entire gallon of paint and blamed the dog, the same dog that had died last year, and whose grave I had dug in the backyard while they watched from the window. She stuffed photo albums into a plastic grocery bag that split at the seams, the kind I bought in bulk because they were cheaper, and she refused to reuse the canvas ones I provided, the same bags that had piled up in the pantry until I recycled them in secret. Carl hesitated, then grabbed his recliner remote, useless now that I had unplugged the smart strip and reset the Wi-Fi password to the date of my nursing license renewal, 08/15/2014, the day I swore an oath to do no harm and finally learned what harm really meant, the day I stood in front of my classmates and promised to protect life and finally protected my own. 4 minutes. Vera whispered something frantic, her hands shaking as she abandoned the albums and seized a single framed photograph. Our wedding day. Me in the ivory dress I had paid for with overtime. My ex-husband smiling like he meant it. Vera and Carl in the background beaming like they had invented love. The same photo I had turned face down in the drawer because I couldn't bear to look at it. She clutched it to her chest like a shield and ran for the back door. The handle turned, but the deadbolt held. She rattled it until her wrist bruised, until the frame shook, until the glass rattled in its pain, until the sound became a scream in the night. Carl disappeared into the garage. I heard the clatter of tools, the scrape of cardboard, the thud of something heavy hitting the concrete floor, the same floor I had painted with garage floor epoxy, because Carl said it was fine, with the oil stains. He returned, dragging the 2 dusty suitcases they had arrived with 5 years ago, promising, "Just until we're back on our feet." The suitcases were cracked vinyl, one wheel missing, the zippers rusted from disuse, the handles wrapped in duct tape because Carl had fixed them once and never replaced them, the same duct tape I had used to patch the hole in the wall after he punched it. He had never intended to leave. He had intended to stay forever, to bleed me dry, to make this house his tomb and mine. 3 minutes. I opened the Ring app and started the countdown timer, projecting it onto the living room TV through the streaming stick I had quietly reprogrammed during my lunch break while eating a sandwich over the sink, because the break room was full of residents gossiping about my divorce, the same sandwich I had made with the last of the bread, because Vera had eaten the rest and left the empty bag on the counter. Giant red numbers filled the screen. 2:59, 2:58, 2:57. The sound was off, but the numbers pulsed like a heart in arrest, like the monitor I had watched for hours, like the countdown to freedom. Vera shrieked at the sight, a sound like a kettle boiling over, like a patient waking up mid-procedure, like the sound I had made in my car after the divorce hearing when no one could hear me. She dropped the wedding photo. The glass cracked but did not shatter, the frame bending under her heel, the same heel that had crushed the flowers I planted along the walkway. Carl tried the garage keypad again. I had changed the code to their wedding anniversary, 06 to 14, 1975. It beeped red. Access denied. He punched the wall, leaving a dent in the drywall I would patch tomorrow with the spackle I kept in the laundry room because someone was always punching holes in something. The same spackle I had used to fix the hole after he threw a bottle at the wall during an argument about money. 2 minutes. They met at the front door again, breathless, clutching mismatched belongings. Vera's mascara ran in black rivers down her cheeks, carving channels through the powder she applied with a trowel, pooling in the wrinkles around her mouth like storm drains, the same wrinkles that had deepened every time she told me I was too serious. Carl's shirt was misbuttoned, one tail hanging out, his belt forgotten in the panic, his fly half-zipped, his socks mismatched, one with a hole in the toe. The suitcases gaped open, spilling socks and a half-empty bottle of my ex's cologne, and a stack of unpaid parking tickets, and a lottery ticket with the numbers scratched off in desperation, and a single unpaid cable bill from 2017 that had gone to collections in my name. 1 minute. Vera tried the doorbell, as if politeness would save her now, as if the chime I had chosen because it sounded like wind chimes could summon mercy, as if the sound could erase 5 years of insults and theft and threats. Carl kicked the doorframe, achieving nothing but a scuffed boot and a splinter in his sock, the same boot that had tracked mud through the house after I asked him to take it off at the door. The countdown ticked. 0:59. 58. I pressed the intercom one last time. Time's up. The shutters reversed with a mechanical sigh, ascending like theater curtains at the end of a tragedy, like the rise of a chest after CPR, like the moment a patient takes their first breath on their own, like the moment I took my first breath without fear in 5 years. The front door unlocked with a soft click that sounded, to my ears, like freedom, like the snap of a tourniquet released, like the beep of a monitor returning to sinus rhythm, like the sound of the judge saying, "Granted," when I asked for sole ownership. Vera stumbled out first, nearly tripping over the threshold she had once refused to cross to take out the trash. The threshold I had painted white myself, because Carl said it was good enough, with the chips and the scuffs. The same threshold I had scrubbed on my hands and knees after Carl spilled beer and let it dry. Her grocery bag split completely. Photo albums thudded to the porch, pages fluttering open to pictures of a younger Vera smiling at a beach, Carl with hair, my ex-husband as a boy on a bicycle, a life that had never included me and never would again, a life I had paid for with every shift, every tear, every sleepless night. She left them where they fell, the wind catching the corners, flipping through memories like a deck of cards, scattering them across the porch like confetti at a funeral. Carl followed, suitcases banging against his shins. One latch sprang open, a cascade of yellowed receipts and lottery tickets and a single unpaid cable bill from 2017 and a hospital bracelet from the night Carl fell down the stairs drunk, and I drove him to the ER and paid the bill spilled across the boards. He did not stop to gather them. He did not look back. I stood aside, arms loose at my sides, the brass key warm in my palm, the chain with the wedding ring cool against my collarbone, the weight of 5 years finally lifting. They paused on the porch, the night air cool and sharp between us, carrying the scent of rain and wet leaves and the faint metallic tang of the storm that had been building for 5 years, the same storm that had soaked me the night I proposed, the same storm that had flooded their apartment and brought them here. Vera opened her mouth, maybe an apology, maybe a curse, maybe a plea, but no sound emerged. Her lips trembled. Carl tugged her arm, his grip leaving white fingerprints on her skin, the same grip he had used to drag my ex-husband into arguments, into bars, into debt, into the divorce that finally set me free. Headlights swept the driveway, twin beams cutting through the dark like scalpels, like the lights in the OR when the surgeon says time to cut. A rideshare idled at the curb, summoned 20 minutes earlier from the hospital parking lot while I waited for the locksmith to finish. The app open on my phone next to the discharge summary for a patient who would go home tomorrow, next to the text from my attorney that said, "It's done." I had prepaid the fare to the Starlight Motel on the edge of town, the one with the flickering neon sign and the hourly rates, and the clerk who didn't ask questions, the same motel my ex-husband had stayed in after he moved out. The driver, a woman with kind eyes and a ponytail and a name tag that read Maria, stepped out to open the trunk. She took one look at the suitcases, at Vera's mascara, at Carl's slumped shoulders, at the scattered photographs, and said nothing. Vera looked back once. The house glowed behind me, every light now mine, every corner finally quiet, the porch bulb illuminating the scattered photographs, the broken frame, the lottery tickets curling in the breeze like dead leaves, the same breeze that had carried my wedding vows away years ago. Carl met my eyes. For the first time in 5 years, he said nothing. Not a threat, not a demand, not a single word, not even sorry. They shuffled down the steps, suitcases dragging furrows in the gravel I had raked smooth myself every spring, the same gravel that had cut my knees when I fell carrying groceries, the same gravel I had spread with a shovel while Carl watched from the porch with a beer. Maria took the bags without comment, her gaze flicking to me with something like respect, something like recognition, something like the nod. A nurse gives another nurse when they know the shift was hell, but they made it through. Vera climbed into the back seat first, clutching the wedding photo to her chest like a talisman, the cracked glass cutting into her fingers, blood smearing the frame. Carl followed, folding his bulk into the seat with a grunt that sounded like surrender, like the sound a patient makes when they finally admit they need help. The door shut. The taillights disappeared around the corner, red eyes winking out, leaving only the sound of rain starting to fall, soft and steady, washing the porch clean of footprints and lottery tickets, and the last echoes of a marriage that had never been a partnership, washing away the last 5 years like a fever breaking. I locked the door behind me, the new deadbolt sliding home with a satisfying thunk, the sound of a chart closed, a shift ended, a life saved, a life reclaimed. The alarm chirped once, then settled into silence, the same silence I had craved for years, the same silence I had found in the eye of the storm. I walked through the house room by room, my footsteps echoing in the sudden emptiness, the way they had echoed the first night I moved in alone, before the wedding, before the in-laws, before I learned that love could be a slow leak you didn't notice until the foundation cracked, until the walls were water-stained and the floors warped and the heart of the house was rotten. The recliner still bore the indent of Vera's body, the leather cracked from years of spilled beer and neglect, the same crack that had appeared the night Carl threw a bottle at the wall and missed. I ran my hand over it, feeling the warmth she had left behind, the last trace of her presence, the last heat of a fire that had burned me for too long. The coffee table gleamed under the lamp, the water ring now just a memory I would sand out tomorrow with the orbital sander I had bought after Carl borrowed mine and never returned it. The same sander I had used to refinish the floors in the nursery that never became a nursery. The kitchen counters were cluttered with takeout containers and empty chip bags, and a single dirty fork balanced on the edge of the sink, like a diver about to jump. The same fork Vera had used to eat my last yogurt and leave the container in the fridge for me to find. The fridge hummed quietly, waiting to be restocked with food that would stay mine, that would not disappear into midnight snacks and hungover breakfasts and passive-aggressive notes about who ate the last of the eggs. I opened the fridge. Inside, half a jar of pickles floating in brine the color of dishwater, a single yogurt with an expiration date from last month and a spoon mark in the foil, a stick of butter softened to the consistency of regret, a carton of orange juice with one swallow left. I closed it again. Tomorrow I would throw it all out. Tomorrow I would start over. Tomorrow I would buy groceries for one and eat them all myself. In the canvas bag, beneath the folder, beneath the brass key, beneath the weight of 5 years of evidence, lay one final item. A small velvet box, the color of midnight. The one I had carried in my pocket for 3 days, waiting for this moment. The same box I had hidden in the tampon box with the emergency cash. The same box I had opened in the hospital bathroom during a break and cried over because it was mine again. I carried it to the kitchen island, the marble cool under my palms. The same marble I had chosen because it reminded me of the counter in the nurse's station where I had cried after my first code, where I had laughed with colleagues after a good save, where I had learned that strength was not the absence of tears, but the refusal to let them drown you, where I had eaten cold pizza at 3 a.m. and planned this night. I opened the box under the pendant light, the same light I had installed myself, because Carl said the old one was fine, even though it flickered. Inside was the wedding ring my ex had pawned 3 years ago for gambling money, the one I had quietly redeemed last month with my signing bonus from the hospital, the one the pawnbroker had wrapped in tissue and handed over with a nod that said he understood. The same nod I had given to patients who knew they were dying but wanted to go home anyway. The diamond caught the light, small but fierce, the way I had learned to be, the way I had to be to survive this house, this marriage, this life. I slipped it onto a thin silver chain, the metal cool against my collarbone, the weight familiar and strange all at once, the same weight I had felt when I carried it on my finger and believed in forever. I hung it on the hook by the back door where I kept my keys, where it glinted beside the brass key and the car fob and the tiny flashlight I used to check pupils in the dark, where it belonged now, reclaimed, repurposed, no longer a promise broken, but a trophy won, a reminder that some things could be salvaged, some things could be made whole again. I poured a glass of the single malt they had never learned to appreciate, the amber liquid catching the light like liquid topaz, like the color of a sunrise after a night shift, like the color of hope after despair. I raised it to the silent rooms, to the photographs I would box up tomorrow, to the dented drywall and the scuffed floors, and the life I was finally, fully taking back, to the woman I had been and the woman I would become. To new beginnings, I said, and drank. The whiskey burned going down, warm and smoky and alive, the same burn I had felt when I told my ex-husband I was done, when I told my attorney to file, when I told myself I deserved this. I set the glass in the sink, the clink echoing like a heartbeat, like the sound of a monitor steady and strong. Outside, the rain fell harder, drumming on the roof I had patched myself with tar and determination, running in rivulets down the gutters I had cleaned myself with a ladder and a hose, soaking the lawn I had seeded myself with sweat and hope. Inside, the house settled around me like a sigh of relief, like a patient finally extubated, like a code called, and the team stepping back to let the heart find its own rhythm, like the moment after the last family member leaves the room and the nurse finally cries. Tomorrow I would list it for sale, the realtor already lined up, the staging photos taken in secret while they were at the casino, the same casino that had taken their money and my marriage. The prophet would seed a smaller place, a condo downtown maybe, with a balcony and a view of the river and no room for ghosts, no room for recliners that weren't mine, no room for voices that weren't welcome. Tomorrow I would patch the drywall with the spackle and the putty knife I kept in the laundry room, sand the table with the orbital sander, throw out the yogurt and the pickles and the butter, buy new coasters and use them myself. Tomorrow I would sleep past 6 a.m. for the first time in years, the curtains drawn, the phone on silent, the house finally, truly mine. Tonight, though, I walked from room to room, turning off lights I no longer had to share, the brass key warm in my pocket, the chain cool against my skin, the taste of whiskey lingering like a promise kept, like the aftertaste of victory. I paused in the hallway, running my hand over the wall where Carl had punched the hole, the patch still rough under my fingers, the same roughness I had felt in my own heart for years. I smiled. Tomorrow I would paint it the color of sunrise, the same color as the sky the morning I bought this house, the same color as the future I was finally allowed to have. The sweetest eviction in history was complete.